Helping your children to eat healthy and stay healthy could pinch your pocket. Glucose biscuits, commonly mixed with milk given to infants in place of baby food, is set to get expensive. The Goods and Services Tax Council, in its 15th meeting, decided to tax all biscuits under GST at 18%. Health food powders like Complan and Horlicks that you mix with milk are also set to get expensive, as malted milk powders will be taxed at 18%. Vaccines too will attract a GST rate of 5%. We have Amita Balachandra joining us live now. Amita, how will this move impact the Aam Aadmi and their children?
Make a massive difference for the Aam Aadmi, and like you rightly pointed out, most of the times doctors do give children glucose biscuits, and that's going to be a big difference at this point in time. It's taxed at 18%. While we spoke to experts, they tell us, of course, that for normal biscuits, it's not going to make much of a difference because excise and VAT combined together, it's about 18% overall. But for glucose biscuits, it's currently between 5 and 6%. That is going to shoot up to 18%. That's a massive difference, and obviously prices will increase there. Having said that, vaccines also are likely to get more expensive. It's going to be taxed at 5%. Toys is differentiated between electronic and normal toys. That's between 12 and 18%. And another point is that malted powder, milk powder, will also shoot up to 28%. And Complan, Horlicks, etc., something that's been used for decades now, that will also go up by 28%. But the biggest pain point, of course, biggest difference that's going to come about is for glucose biscuits, which is at the moment between 5 and 6%. That's going to shoot up to 18%.
Right, Amita, we understand that education, of course, is exempt, but what about all the accessories in a way that go with education? What about notebooks, for instance? The various kinds of notebooks that one has to buy for your children. It could be journals, it could be drawing books, etc. Your crayons, your pencils, your pens. Also, what about the fees that parents pay for extracurricular activities, for bus services, canteen food, etc.? Will the GST on that pinch?
Obviously, like you rightly pointed out, notebooks, drawing books, colors, pencils, crayons, all of that is taxed at 12%, between 12 and 18%. Bookbinding machinery is taxed at 18%. Sports goods, for instance, apart from the fitness goods, is taxed at 12%. So a number of changes are going to come about. 12 to 18% is the average that they are taxing at. But healthy food, for instance, glucose biscuits in particular, that is going to pinch the Aam Aadmi the most at this point in time, because 5 to 6% is going to increase to 18%.
Right, and Amita, just to drive home the importance of glucose biscuits, how exactly are, apart from the fact that children eat glucose biscuits, how else is it used?
Well, we spoke to doctors, of course. They said that most of the time, instead of Cerelac, for instance, which most people can't afford, they use glucose biscuits and powder them and sort of give it to children. So that is going to be the biggest pain point. And at this point in time, glucose biscuits, obviously, from 5 to 6% to 18% overall is going to be taxed. Another point, of course, is vaccines, which is going to shoot up. It's about 5% right now. So vaccines at this point in time cost anywhere up to 2,000 rupees. So that is obviously going to pinch the poor.
Right. So vaccines also all set to get expensive now. Amita, of course, we understand that a lot of consumer groups, a lot of industry groups have also made representations to the Finance Ministry as far as the GST rates are concerned. Any chance that any of these goods that you just pointed out have any representations been made to the Finance Ministry? Is there a chance that the ministry could, review the tax slabs on these?
Well, obviously, the next review meeting is going to happen on 11th. So, a couple of things that the Finance Minister could take into consideration at this point in time. The Federation, Biscuit Federation Association, along with a number of other members like Parle-G and Britannia, have made a representation. They've said that while you can not tax bread, for instance, which is exempt at this point in time, and tax biscuits and all kinds of biscuits to 18%, why do that? Instead, bring it down to 5%, which is already the current tax tax rate, including VAT and excise. They say, of course, that 18% is way too high and bring it down to 5%. So they are likely to make a representation. They've already made a mention of this, industry players, and this is perhaps going to be reviewed on the 11th.
Right. Amita, stay with us. We also have Santosh Dalvi from KPMG, partner and head, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Dalvi, of course, the first question that I would want to ask of you is that the 18% tax on biscuits, will that make it more costlier for me to buy glucose biscuits for my child?
Obviously, there are two types of biscuits, which are, premium biscuits and other biscuits where, glucose biscuit will get, covered. So as far as the effective tax rate under the current regime, that is excise plus VAT put together for glucose biscuits, is around, 9 to 10%. And if that goes up to 18%, certainly there is a significant rise in the tax rate, and that would push the prices up for glucose biscuits, whereas non-glucose or premium biscuits, even under the current regime, the effective tax rate is about 16 to 17%. So that also would push the cost marginally, because the GST rate is supposed to be 18%.
What you're telling us is biscuits as a whole will get expensive, whether you're eating the cheapest priced glucose biscuit, or the costlier cream biscuits or the cookies that you get in the market. Santosh, also there is a 5% tax on vaccines. There is an 18% tax that has been proposed for malted milk foods. Will that drive up costs for these, essentials in a way for children?
Yeah, of course, if you look at the entire pharmaceutical, category, largely the majority of the products are getting covered in 12%, where the current tax rate is about 8 to 9%. So that will certainly push the pharmaceutical prices up because of the tax rate going up. Even such as vaccines and baby food also, where they enjoy the current tax, concessions or low rate of tax, and the GST, that also would get pushed up, and that will have negative impact on the prices.
Right. And apart from that, tell us this, are these the final rates? Because we understand there is another meeting scheduled on the 11th. And if that is the case, is there a chance that the rates on these products could be reviewed? Because obviously this is something that a lot of families use for their children.
Obviously, I agree with you. And, as stated by the GST Council, these rates are provisional. And the next, the important meeting is on 11th of June, where they are supposed to, specify the final rates. Till then, it again depends upon the kind of representations made by the industry and the impacted parties. I think certainly they should consider that, and based on that, they might reconsider the tax classification.
Right. Santosh, also could you break down the impact on education for us? Because from what we understand, education as such is exempt. But what about, the sundries, for instance, notebooks and all the stationery that we buy for schools? Apart from that, of course, the fees that we pay for extracurricular activities, the non-academic fees that we pay, the bus services, the canteen services, will all of those also attract a high level of GST?
Yes, the education, which is academic education, as you rightly put, is exempt, but that also means, and that is the current tax structure as well. So, but the impact what we have to see is the cost for currently the education sector is 15% service tax, whatever services they receive as education, and that goes up to 18%. And they will not get the credit because they will not have to pay any GST on that, which means on the cost side, the education sector also would have the higher tax cost, and which indirectly would make, this even academic education also costlier because of the tax rate going up. Though they don't have to pay any tax, that is one. But non-academic, certainly, tax rate is also going to 18%. So, and other expenses like bus and, canteen, etc. So, yes, that would have a negative impact.
Santosh, I also recall reading somewhere that education, your primary and your secondary education may possibly be exempt from GST, but university education, anything post class 10th, from what I understood, will attract a higher level of tax. So higher education is going to get expensive. Is that what the government has proposed?
So again, so the final the rate classification for the services is yet to be declared. But if you go by the present logic, the degree courses, okay, even if it is post graduation also up to graduation, that enjoys the exemption. In GST also, to my mind, that should continue the exemption. But the point is not that. Point is the cost of this education sector will go up because of the service tax rate going up from 15 to 18%.
Right, Santosh Dalvi, thank you very much for joining us and breaking down the GST proposals on Mirror Now. Of course, feeding your child, ensuring that your child is eating healthy food, ensuring that your child stays healthy by giving them vaccinations on time, and of course, educating your child and spending on the higher education of your child. All of that is going to pinch going forward if these GST proposals are passed in toto and if there is no change. Of course, all eyes now on the meeting on the 11th of June, and we are hoping that the government in its wisdom will look at reviewing some of those proposals.